Hello, everyone. Welcome. Just waiting for everyone to join. Okay, I think that's everyone from the waiting room. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event this evening for rep roles, CSP rep roles and how to get involved. I'm just going to run through some housekeeping for you to get the event started. So we are recording the event, so feel free to turn your cameras off if you're more comfortable, but we would love to see you. So if you are asking any questions, please turn your camera on if you're comfortable with that. Please put your mics on mute when you're not speaking. Closed captions and transcript are available. You can access these either through the CC button at the bottom toolbar on your screen or under the three dots under more, and there should be a button that says captions. If you're having any issues, please drop me a message and I can help you with that. Feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourself, ask questions, make suggestions or comments. Alternatively, you can use the raise hand function as well. We will have a Q&A section at the end, so please try and keep your questions for the end. But if you have something burning, please, feel free to ask. A reminder just to go for a stretch or break if you're needed throughout the event. And just a quick note on language. During one of the sections that Alex is going to be covering around data, we have specific language used in the presentation based on how the data was captured. So just a note on that as we go through. And so I will hand over, if my slides will let me. Oh, sorry, I'm going to do the agenda first. I forgot. My slides are very slow. So shortly I'll be handing over to Alex Mackenzie for the welcome and introduction. We're also going to do an introduction to the types of CSP and their roles from Alice, who's one of the organisers at the CSP. You'll then also hear from some current CSP reps, so Declan, Jack and Vanessa we've got here to talk about their experiences, how they got involved and why, and then we'll go to the Q&A. And so, without further ado, I'll stop sharing my slides and over to you, Alex, who's former chair of CSP Council and CSP Vice President.
Thanks, Scarlett. So hello and welcome to everybody. Before we start, Scarlett's been quite clear, this is a safe space. This webinar is only open to members who've got protected characteristics. Important to remember, there are no silly questions. We want you to be open, we want you to be curious. And also, whilst we're recording this first part, we're going to stop recording when we get to the Q&A part so that anybody can ask any questions. So there's no recording of that. What we might be able to do after that is produce a kind of frequently asked questions to go along with this so that any members that aren't attending today but wish to watch this back will also get that information. So I'm delighted to be here because I've been a rep pretty much all of my career. I started out as a steward. I fairly quickly then became a regional steward, and through that role then worked more with the CSP, taking roles within what was then the Industrial Relations Committee. I remained a steward all the way through until actually I was elected as chair of CSP Council. And at that point, just really because I couldn't give the time to it, did I give up being a steward? And I can tell you that was quite a wrench for me. So, I believe so wholeheartedly in our rep network as being the strength that the CSP has with its members. So I'm hoping that, we're all hoping that this webinar will allow members with protected characteristics to really understand the roles that are out there, partly understanding how you can get support, but also how you can get involved. And that's what we're really keen on. We're hoping to support a recruitment of maybe a more diverse range of reps, because it is important that the rep network also reflects the membership as well. And with that, we hope there'll be a greater understanding between the reps and the diversity networks, and that we'll get greater working together as well, because I think together we can create something even more sort of impressive. During my tenure as chair, we became really aware of how obvious lack of diversity there was generally within our networks and particularly within our governance structure. And as we started to correct this, it then became obvious that we needed to do a whole lot more. And this is how we ended up co-creating the Equity, Diversity and Belonging strategy. That strategy now sits very much within the main corporate strategy. So it is very much business for the CSP. And this event supports that work that's outlined in the strategy. But we are also aware that there is more work to be done, and that we need to do more to improve supporting members with protected characteristics. This work is being done with input from members, but by strengthening our networks and by getting greater diversity, it is another step along this road. And becoming a rep is about being part of a larger network of reps. We have over 700 volunteers, and you get a lot of support when you're being a rep, and it really is a very fulfilling role. And obviously we've got Declan, Jack and Vanessa to give you a little bit of their insight into their roles. But first of all, I'm going to hand over to Alice, who's going to outline a little bit about the different roles that we have.
Thank you very much, Alex. I will wait for Scarlett just to pop up the slides. Thank you, Scarlett. So yeah, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the 3 different rep roles that we have at the CSP at this moment in time. So my background is I'm a physio by background, and I will disclose that I was a steward for 6 years. So I have a slight bias towards the steward role. But much like Alex, one of the hardest moments of actually joining the CSP as a staff member was giving up my steward role. It was a role that I was very proud to do, and I'm very proud of the work that we managed to achieve in Swansea. And I worked alongside Vanessa as a steward in Swansea. So if I could have the next slide, please, Scarlett. Very slow transition, but Scarlett is hotspotting on her mobile, so that explains that. So the first thing that I'm going to cover is talking about the diversity data of our current representative network. And this is where Scarlett talked a little bit about the language. So this language is language that we pulled from data. So it's not language that we've specifically chosen to use to present this. But looking at April 2023 was the last time we did a review of our rep data. And at the moment, what we know is that 90% of our stewards are white, 89% of our safety reps are white, 62% of reps identify as heterosexual, 34% prefer not to say, 63% do not identify as disabled or having a long-term condition, and again, 35% prefer not to say. That data, when I looked at it, was quite stark. It's something that as CSP staff we are aware of, but it just goes to show that there is massive room for improvement in diversifying our rep network. And like Alex said, we know for our membership, for CSP members, that a diverse representative network is going to be better for our members. We're going to be able to better represent them, much like we talk about the physio workforce representing the patient diversity that we serve and how that results in better patient care. I think you can reflect that quite nicely to the diversity of our rep network. So I guess that sets the context about why as CSP staff, we are so keen to improve these statistics, and we know that it's going to get a better outcome for our members of the CSP and increase that sense of belonging for our membership, which is so important to us. So going on to the three roles that are available within the rep network. Next slide, please, Scarlett. So the first role I'm going to talk about is the steward role. So the steward role is predominantly there around representing members with workplace problems. They have a role within negotiation with management, and when they are negotiating with management, they're there to represent the views of members. So they're not there representing their own views, they're representing the physio workforce and CSP members. Those negotiations can be things like negotiating an on-call policy, negotiating a toil policy or a loo policy. It could be about negotiating flexible working within the workplace. It could be negotiating pay, but on a local level, so things like mileage. But that negotiating does cover quite a broad sense of negotiation. They're also there to recruit new members of physio workforce into the CSP membership, including support workers. They're there to work with safety reps and, where present, our equality reps to find solutions to collective problems in the workplace. So in terms of the training that they receive, they attend a 4-day face-to-face training at a training venue called Quorn. That is a residential training, and that is offered within the first year of starting the role. Normally it's completed within the first 6 months, but at different points people can go up to a year before they do that training. Since COVID, we have offered that training in a virtual setting. So during the COVID pandemic, we turned to fully virtual training, and we do now offer an option where you can do face-to-face or you can do virtual. At the moment, we haven't got a hybrid option, but that might be something that gets explored in the future. We also offer regional training throughout the year, so up to 2 to 3 sessions a year, where you get together with your regional steward team, plus or minus safety reps, to do more specific topics. Me and Vanessa have actually been to one in Cardiff where we talked about the annual representative conference and all Wales policies. But in the past, we've run ones that are specifically around EDB. So we've got one coming up in October that's going to be specifically around flexible working. In the past, we've had managing sickness, and then we've had ones that have kind of been around EDB collective issues in the workplace. That gives you a little bit about a flavour of the steward role. So thinking more about casework, more about any discriminatory cases, any disciplinary cases, grievance cases, they would be going to the steward, and then the steward might tap in the safety reps and the equality reps if it's got something that they think they can be supported on. They'll also negotiate, but they also do a really big role in organising, which I'm hoping Jack's going to talk a little bit about in his section around kind of industrial action, and how he organised his members and his team towards that industrial action. So I will move on to the next role now. So the next role we're going to talk about is safety reps. So safety reps carry out health and safety inspections in the workplace. They're an advocate for CSP members within health and safety meetings. They ensure managers consult you on behalf of members regarding any risk assessment findings, any new technology that might be implemented in the workplace, and new equipment in the workplace. They work with the CSP steward and other reps at the employer to find solutions to collective problems in the workplace. So if you think about some of your workplaces, we know we're hearing now more than ever about some hospital buildings that are kind of inappropriate to be used as workplaces. So you might find that you've got leaking ceilings. You might find that you've got windows that don't open. So in the summers that have been recently, the temperature in there gets really high. You might find that during COVID, you had loads of new technology implemented during that time. The safety rep role really is to make sure that managers are held to account around things like workplace safety. If you have got ceilings that are leaking, that they have legal rights to kind of hold managers to account, really, to say what are they doing about it, and follow that up through different cascading mechanisms within the trust. And things like new technology, you know, they're there to represent the views of CSP membership. They also do things like health and safety surveys. They might do stress surveys, temperature checking. The training that they have is a two-day face-to-face training within 1 year of starting the role. Again, that is being offered virtually at the moment as well. And they also have regional training days that they can attend, the same as stewards, for that top up of more specific, potentially local issues as well. So that's the safety rep role, also sometimes known as health and safety rep. The final role that we're going to talk about is the equality rep role. So this is currently a pilot project within the CSP, and we've just closed our recruitment campaign for recruiting to the extended pilot project. We are absolutely overjoyed to know that we have had 63 people that have expressed an interest in the role, which is amazing. And we'll hear from Dec shortly, who is one of our equality reps that's been in post for, I think, about 2 years now. So the role of equality reps is around influencing and organising within the workplace, They are only appointable at the moment where there is an existing steward, because this role at the moment does not involve doing casework, although they will support stewards and safety reps with casework if they feel that they can give advice and support. They'll work with CSP stewards and safety reps on updating workplace policies, so thinking about things like flexible working policies, on-call policies, looking at that from an EDB lens and making sure that those topics are being picked up and they're going to create that sense of belonging and equity in the workplace. They'll also support members that are facing any discrimination at work. They'll look at developing strategies to advance EDB in the workplace, engage with the employer, the staff EDB or EDI networks, and other local staff side unions to progress EDB in the workplace. They'll make sure that CSP members are informed and engaged around workplace developments relating to EDB. Their training will be a one-day face-to-face training course, and they will have virtual equality rep catch-up sessions. They're also going to be invited to the regional steward and safety rep training days as well, because they'll be part of our core representative group. And yeah, we're really excited that the pilot project has been extended, and we hope that during this pilot project we will be able to create a case for this role to be made permanent in the CSP if we can show the impact that they can have in the workplace. So that's just a really, really brief whistle-stop tour of the 3 different rep roles. I appreciate that was a lot of information to take on, but hopefully speaking to our 3 reps will now be able to allow you to put some of it into context. But also there's a whole host of information on the CSP website about the different roles, which I will make sure you get a link to, so you can have a read through some more information in their own time. I've seen a questions come in. I will leave answering it for now, but we will make sure we come back to that question in the Q&A. And I will hand back. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Alice. I think that was a really helpful introduction. So first of all, going to ask Declan to speak.
Thanks, Alex. Hi guys, my name's Declan. So I'm a physio by background, currently working in Sussex in an MSK outpatient setting. Like Alice said, I've been an equality rep now for a couple of years. Initially, I got involved in the role because my CSP steward informed me about the role sort of becoming a pilot, and I was quite keen and eager to get involved. So a bit of background into myself: I was born in Lagos in Nigeria, lived there for 6 years, and then moved over to Sussex, where I've sort of been based ever since. Studied up in Leicester and the University of Leicester for 3 years, and now I've been practicing for about 5 years. In terms of why I wanted to become an equality rep, I think there's sort of lots of many reasons behind it. But it was around the time of sort of the George Floyd riots in America. There was lots of chat and lots of talk going on about equality, about diversity, and about how actually it's not just an American problem, it's a widespread problem. So I was sort of quite keen to sort of try and bring those conversations around in an area where typically there's not masses of diversity. So I'm based in Horsham, in West Sussex, which is a largely sort of white British population, but I live in Crawley, which is slightly more of a mixed population. So I think I wanted to get people talking, essentially, because it's something that typically gets brushed under the carpet just because people are uncomfortable having discussions around race, equality, diversity, and protected characteristics. So I managed to get sort of appointed because I sort of got the thumbs up from my colleagues, and then, like Alice said, I went to my training course in Corn, which was lovely, great setup there. And then sort of started working within the role. Within the role, I've had a lot of opportunity to sort of to network with other CSP reps and sort of put myself out there. And the thing I've liked and enjoyed about the role, but I've also sort of struggled with at times, is how pliable it's been, because it's a pilot at the moment. There wasn't much of a script to say that this is what you need to do, this is how much we expect from you, and you could sort of make the role your own. So I've sort of seen myself as a middleman between CSP members and the CSP, essentially to highlight any issues that can fall under the EDB realm, and people at times don't realise how big that realm is. So my understanding is EDB can is anything that involves anyone from a protected characteristic, which can essentially be anyone from a pregnant lady to a married or a person who's being discriminated against because of their marital status, obviously to someone's sexual orientation, race. There's lots of things that sort of come within EDB. So I've sort of taken it upon myself to ensure that sort of members within my workplace are aware that I'm around and aware of what my scope is and what I can do and how I can help them. So first thing I did was sort of send around and circulate an email around basically saying what my new role was and basically just asking people to reach out to me. And it's been really nice to have people reach out to me at points. Even though I don't get involved with casework, I'm able to guide people in the right direction, and I'm able to escalate situations that need to be escalated. So if you don't mind me giving an example, recently, one of the things I did within the role was I try and sort of highlight equality, special equality events in the calendar. So things like Black History Month, LGBT plus History Month. So as part of LGBT plus History Month, we put some posters up in our department of sort of famous LGBT clinicians who had basically made a massive contribution to healthcare over the years. And there was a specific case about a doctor, I can't remember their name, who was one of the first doctors to undergo gender reassignment surgery and transitioned from female to male. Made an incredible headway into tuberculosis research and sort of changed the way that TB was diagnosed and managed and saved millions of lives essentially. So an amazing person, but someone took it upon themselves to change their pronouns on the poster, which was in one of our staff rooms. I was horrified to think that a member of staff would do that. And obviously till this day we don't know who did it because no one put their hand up. But essentially I escalated that to my wider team and basically just reaffirmed within our team meeting the CSP EDB policy on our trust C EDI policy as well, and basically said this is something that we can't stand for, and it goes against everything that us as an organisation are trying to achieve. And then I sort of raised the issue to our trust CDI lead, who sent a wider spread message around the whole trust, because Sussex Community Foundation Trust is massive and covers lots of hospitals. So she sent a widespread message so that every member of staff would receive it, just basically taking a no-nonsense stance. So essentially, although I'm not allowed to get involved in casework myself, I can highlight it to others who can, who essentially have more scope than I do potentially. So that's just one example of how I've sort of been able to help members. And again, I've had colleagues come to me with lots of different issues and around sort of potentially things that have been said in passing which have not been appropriate, and sort of I've been able to raise that to team leads and again EDI leads within the trust, and that's been managed within our trust pathway. And then on top of that, I also have sort of been involved in delivering things like training sessions on EDI topics. So we did a couple of training sessions on cultural competence to our clinicians within MSK, and the impact of culture and the impact it has on patients' decisions, because so within the NHS we're trying to strive towards patient-centered care and personalised care as much as we can, and cultural competence culture comes into that, because a defining part of someone's care could simply be the culture they've been brought up in. So just sort of highlighting that as a topic and how we can try and aim or strive to become more culturally competent within our sort of day-to-day practice. In addition to that, I've done some work around sort of language line and use of translators in our service, ensuring that clinicians feel comfortable using translators, and we're optimizing use of translators as much as we can to give patients who English isn't their first language, to give them a fairer appointment. So trying to sort of ensure there's enough time for the appointment firstly, and trying to minimize the use of family members where possible, simply because I think it's something that a lot of trusts advise against, but a lot of people do on a regular basis. Obviously there's a time and a place where it might be necessary, but essentially we don't know what family members are passing across, or the messages that are being sent across. So essentially we should be trying to use, within our trust anyway, we should be trying to use interpreters. So just trying to make that a more routine thing. Within SCFT and our MSK partnership, we've got a health equities group, which I've become involved in as part of my role as well. So that we're looking at trying to improve the patient experience for patients who access our service, from protected characteristics. So as part of that, we've looked at mapping our patients' ethnicity data. So previously we had no idea of the ethnicity of the patients that we were seeing. And then we've sort of started to map that data prior to their initial appointments, and we've started to record trends in the data as well. So things like what are patients, the amount of patients that come into our service versus the amount of patients in our local census, and how that differs to the spread of patients in our local census, and is there a group of patients that we're potentially not missing out on seeing because of various reasons. We know that people from BAME backgrounds or socially deprived backgrounds don't access healthcare as often and have poorer health outcomes. So we're trying to actively find which groups we're not reaching and reach out to them and do some community outreach projects. Alongside that, looking at trends in DNA rates and trying to find out why patients from specific backgrounds are DNAing more than other patients. So that's been really cool to get involved in. And then just in terms of other things, just getting involved in the annual representative conference as well, which I attended last year. I was due to attend this year, but unfortunately had to pull out last minute. But it was a really good way to sort of to network with different reps with a special interest in equalities, and also have a chance to chat and do one of the breakout sessions on EDI as well. So yeah, there's lots of room for networking and lots of room to basically sort of grow my non-clinical grow my non-clinical skills as well. So yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed my experience as a rep, and I think it's not all rosy. So I think it's important to talk about challenges as well as the positives. And I think for me, the initial challenge was time, especially being in an MSK setting where you've got your patients blocked in sort of 6 weeks in advance at times. It can be quite difficult to find time to try and get these equality messages out to staff, or try and find time to help staff with their queries. But that became sort of something that I raised to my team leads, and I was able to get an hour protected time a week, and they're really flexible on that as well. So if I need more, then they'll be able to provide more. So that's been a real positive. And then just also, I think because of the sort of newness of it all, the scope, and how much I was expected to do, and I still sort of struggle with this a bit, because I feel like I'm utilizing my time as well as I can, but is there more I could be doing? And I think with any rep role, that might be a question that sort of sits within reps minds, because there's no end to how much you can help members, but obviously you're only one person, and there's only so many hours within the week. So I think it's that's something I still try and I still struggle with a bit, but I think just trying to utilize my time as best as I can, and try and reach out to members as best as I can through sort of emails and through newsletters and things like that. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Are we taking questions now, or?
No, we'll take those. We'll take those all at the end. But thank you, Declan. That was really interesting. I found that absolutely fascinating. And you know, for being new in the role as such, in a new role, I think that you've showcased the breadth actually, that and the reach that kind of role can have. I think, you know, by going sort of trust wide, it's not just about local. It's actually, you know, having influence wider. And I think that's been really interesting. So thank you for that. So I'm now going to hand over to Jack to talk about his role.
Thanks, Alex. My name's Jack Holroyd. I'm based at Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust, which is in South East London. I'm one of the stewards there. Little bit of background on myself. Obviously, I'm a physio. My background's in MSK. I've worked with patients in particular who would identify as having been failed by the health system. So patients with chronic pain, trans patients in particular, and through my work on the CSP, I then kind of ended up pivoting, and I currently work with our international recruitment program and lead that mainly around the protection of vulnerable staff. As many of you will have had blasted over social media from me, I'm queer. I've been a queer activist for most of my life. I got absolutely hammered at school, and I left school, just went, nobody should have to go through that. And there's been a real sense of kind of protection and wanting to fix a lot of the inherent problems that we see. And I see these days, in response to a lot of the transphobia that we see in the world at the moment, that's politically advantageous, but has been really, really damaging for a lot of people. I'm deaf. I'm disabled in lots of small ways that I tend not to talk a lot about. Neurodiverse, I've kind of run the gamut, but white, cis, and working class. And thankfully, on a lot of these things, with disabilities and with class and with being queer, I have the privilege that I can pass. And something I've noticed over time is that if you've got an understanding of living from a minoritized community, and other people don't realize that, then you have an immense privilege that you can leverage to help your community. And being able to sound not working class when I need to sound not working class means that people are more likely to listen to me. And that then gives me the opportunity to get eyes on important issues that affect my community and my team. A little bit of my journey with union. I'm being from a working class background and like old school unionist head, very, very left wing politics. I was quite skeptical about the CSP when I was a student. I saw the student reps going off to Quorn, and I thought the whole thing was a lot of money and yeah, not particularly effective. And I've kind of had a pretty dim view of the CSP. And when I graduated, I went to work for a private company where we had very little union representation once again. And then I moved into the NHS, and we had great union reps, and I needed some help getting through to a rather faceless and soulless finance team who were not paying me appropriately, and my union rep helped me out. And that was really an activating moment for me, where I recognized that a union lives or dies by its reps. And you can have, it might be that in your trusts individually, the CSP doesn't feel like it has much to offer, and in which case you could be the one to offer that. And there's, it was a really, really powerful moment for me to go, yeah, okay, I've not thought a great thing about the CSP, but it is my trade union. And that old thing of ask not what your trade union can do for you, ask what you can do for your trade union. Of course, a professional body as well, but my politics on my sleeve. So I went off to, I got selected as rep on the nod because I was the only person that went, yeah, all right, I'll do it. And I went off to Quorn and actually learned the value of that course. And it taught me a lot, and the networking opportunities to be able to raise a red flag and get help when I needed it were massively beneficial. And I still have people that I stay in touch with from that course where we learned a lot from each other, and yeah, really helped me when I kind of forced to step off the high horse and actually get down to the meat of negotiation. Having somebody who's competent at that to ask questions of has been really useful. I will say that being part of the CSPs really opened a lot of doors for me, and I've been involved in the Equity, Diversity and Belonging Committee, which advises CSP Council on matters around EDB. In particular, been involved with a piece of work that around trans healthcare and helping physio to be a safe space where trans clinicians can feel safe practicing. And Declan mentioned this incident at his trust, and actually that's something that we see a fair amount of in physio, that actually the government's culture wars have permeated what is a profession that is 75% female and 80% middle class and overwhelmingly white, and that applies to reps as well as it does to members. And actually, we have I feel quite strongly that we have a duty as reps and as members from minority groups to be able to show the human side of minorities, because so often kind of especially trans people get used as political football. Next year it will be somebody different, but at the moment it's trans people that get used in this political way as a scapegoating. And we know from lots and lots of research around homophobia and xenophobia and racism that the more contact you have with people from minority groups, the less racist, xenophobic, homophobic and transphobic you are. And actually if we can show ourselves living our best lives and representing our communities within the trade union and within the team, we stand to help a lot of people with that. I promised Alice that I'd talk about IA. So that attitude of a union living or dying on its reps really kind of shaped then where we went as a union branch. So we were having these huge union meetings that every rep, every health and safety rep, every manager, basically band A or above, was in a video call. Most people were videos off, one headphone in, answering their emails on their computer and just not engaging. And it was this really combative, problem-focused shouting match that was supposed to be staff side. And we can do better than that. And one of the key realizations that we had fairly early on after I started, I joined the rep and went, I think we can do better than this. And we're realizing that the head of therapies is a CSP member, the director of allied clinical services at our trust is a CSP member. And that gives us, because of the nature of our union being our professional body, in a way that no other unions have, it means that you can sit down with the director and you can assume good faith. In a way that when I sit down with nursing directors, I can't. And we know that within the CSP, we're all physios here, that professional interconnection, that professional allegiance is really, really powerful, and there's a lot we can do with it. And so we kind of started to bring up some formality, like we would have a chair for meetings, we'd have an agenda, we'd stick to what was down there. We really, really shrunk down. We switched from doing things on Teams to doing things face-to-face. We went back so that then it would be 1 or 2 reps on a rotation or chosen to do that would sit down with the head of therapies or with the head of physio. And that way it would be 2 people having a human discussion. And that was really, really powerful because it just took a lot of the performative aspects out of, oh, I have to say this because my manager's watching. It just really, really diffused our meetings and started to make things really, really collaborative. And then when industrial action came around, we were in a really, really solid place to come up with some solid negotiations around that. And we managed to negotiate for quite a large packet of money to be spent on equipment, because the trust realized that one of our hospitals, people were volunteering to cover the respiratory shifts, and the other hospital, absolutely nobody volunteered. And it kind of forced people to ask questions about what was going on. And they were willing to look into the details and ask the questions because we had established that consensus all the way from the directors down. How well would that work in a trust that wasn't supportive, where physio wasn't very strong? That would require for you to go and give it a try in an unsupported trust. But through collaboration, through regular communication, to the point where we inform all, not just our members, but all physios and all people who could be associate members. We kept them up to date with where things were at, both kind of politically, within the kind of the progression of industrial action, and also, right, what is a ballot? What is this ballot going to look like? And then we went round everybody individually to make sure that they had received their ballots. And we ended up getting one of the highest turnouts and the largest mandates in the country, which I'm really pleased with. But that takes hard work, that takes graft, but your trust is required to give you that time. And within MSK, as Declan said, kind of planning in advance is difficult. One of the benefits I've had switching into a management-y type role is that I've been less tied to an MSK diary, and I've been able to set my own timescales, which give me a lot more time to represent. And yeah, with all of this, we've built a structure that we are trying to keep going because, surprise, surprise, inflation hasn't done what the government said it would do. And therefore, we are likely to go for round 2. So if you don't have a union at your trust, if you feel like the union could be better, stand up, be a rep, lead from the front, get ready for an industrial action Mark 2, electric boogaloo.
Thanks, Jack. I think that's a great rousing speech at the end there. But I have to say, I think it was your thoughts on the role and actually, again, the influence that you've had, I think has been really important. And I think there's a lot of key points in there actually about it's about relationship building and how you can go about that and what you can achieve when you work on that. So that was really really helpful. Thank you. Now time to hand over to Manessa.
Hi guys. No, I'm feeling a bit pressured now. After those two, they were very good. So I'm Manessa. So I'm one of the stewards I'm one of the Welsh stewards based in Swansea. I used to work with Alice. So I've been a steward for around 9 or 10 years now. And I've been a steward as a band 5, as a band 6, rotational, and then as a static member as well. So I'm based in MSK, outpatients. And I work part-time in the NHS, and then I work part-time doing veterinary physiotherapy. So I became a steward just to help out, really. We had issues in regards to the on-call rota. So this was when I was a rotational 5 going into a rotational 6, where we're quite a big health board, and that the rota was split. So half of us was doing lots of on-calls and the other half wasn't. So there was issues in regards to that, and we didn't have that many stewards at the time. So I became a steward in order to step up to the plate, as they always say. When you start to raise concerns, well, let's do something about it. So I decided that I was going to. And so that was my first case that I did, which was quite a big one, working on the on-call rota, so changing the policy. And then it just evolved from there. So I then became more involved in like the partnership forums, doing casework, and it's just evolved from there. And now my role since 2020, I do a lot of equality stuff. So I'm one of the co-founders of the Welsh Race Equality Group, and I also am the BAME rep for the Welsh Board, and I've also been heavily involved in the setting up of the diversity networks within our health board. So I've been doing that all alongside my steward role. So it's not just, your steward role is not just casework, it will evolve. So it can be whatever you want it to be, really. So a lot of us are more like, when Alice worked for us, Alice was very strategic. So Alice did all the strategic type things. And I did more of the like equality stuff. So if you've got a good team, we've got a really good team in Swansea. At one point, there were 11 of us. I think there's 9 of us now, and we've just recruited another 4 because we've got 2 people that are leaving. So we've got a really big team, which is good because it means that the junior stewards are able to cut the teeth doing lots of different things and helping out with the more senior stewards. And then once they find their niche, then they can then go off and explore that a little bit more. So that's also helpful. And we've got a really good senior negotiating officer. So we do quite a lot of training. We've got a really good active WhatsApp group as well. So a lot of people find coming on as a steward really daunting because they think that you're going to have all of this work that you're going to have to try and juggle with your clinical work, but you do get protected time. And it's a team thing. It's not just you working in isolation. You'll be part of a wider team with the stewards, with the safety reps, and with the equality reps. And then also there's then further layers then within the CSP. You've got your senior negotiating officers, you've got your organisers, and then all the executives then within the CSP. So you're not just working by yourself. And also as well, we work heavily with the other trade unions. So it's actually quite interesting to be working alongside them as well, because you learn a lot more stuff when you're working in partnership, not only with the other trade unions, but also with the executive teams. And that's what the NHS is about. It's about working in partnership in order to get the best outcomes for the service, for us as staff members, and then also for the health board. So you will learn lots, and you'll find that your role will develop as you go through it. So don't feel daunted. A lot of people, when they come on as a junior steward, they'll say, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for it, but you are. Everybody has got that side to them. It's just being able to have that support in order to be able to get to that point. So we do quite a lot of like buddying and things like that. So if you are interested, definitely speak to your local steward and speak to your the local CSP team, because it is really helpful. I'm trying to think of what else I do within my role. So I suppose as well, my role, because of I've done quite a lot within the CSP, my role then has developed much more within my clinical role. I'm more going down more strategic and more manager type things now, but also it's then led me to do more things within the CSP. I'm one of the chairs of one of the professional networks, which is the veterinary. So I'm the chair of ACPAT, which is the Association of Chartered Physiotherapists in Animal Therapy. So your skills are transferable. So everything that you learn as a steward, it is transferable if you want to then go on to do a manager type role, or you want to go on to more strategic type, or you want to do anything that's more niche. If you've got, say, like you're more neuro based, if you wanted to be doing more within the executive team, within the professional networks, it is all transferable. And it makes you a lot more better at like doing negotiations, because when you're doing your casework and you go into your grievances or your like return to work, you've got to be able to be an impartial person within that room and look at everything from everyone's point of view. You've got much more understanding of the policies and procedures which come through, and because a lot of the time we're involved in the writing of the procedures and policies, you are much able to identify when things are going to go awry, so you'll be able to intercept them. So a lot of the things that we do as a steward, it's about dealing with situations before they escalate. So if people come to you and they've got a grievance or there's an issue that's starting to rumble on, where there is kind of a conduit between the managers and the staff and the executive team in order to try and resolve those issues before they become more serious. So you do get much better at doing like negotiating and also supporting each other. You do become that point of contact. For a lot of members of staff, if people are having a bit of a rubbish time, you'll find that you are the first person that they will come to. So you're part of then working with that in order to signpost if they need like well-being and things like that. So it's a much bigger role than just doing casework. And if you are wanting to do it, then I would say definitely do it, because it will change your career. It will make you a better clinician, because you've got much more of a diverse way of thinking and a diverse like profile within your job in order to be able to work. And also it's nice to be able to work a little bit more and understanding the inner workings of the NHS if you are NHS based, because there's so much more to it. The NHS is such a unique organisation, so it's much easier once you are within the steward network to understand. So sometimes when you're on the ground just doing the work and people make decisions, you think that's a bit random. It's because it's part of a bigger picture that's everything's working into a certain policy. And once you get into that way of thinking, then you can see things as they're starting to develop. And if you're once you do get a little bit more experience, then you're able to think, okay, where can you influence that in order to better the experience for staff, for patients, but also where does physio fit into that? That was one thing that me and Alice always did. We was at every meeting because we wanted to know what was going on in order to make sure that physio had a voice. And that's the thing. If you want to be involved in something, you have to be at the forefront in order, so because decisions will be made regardless, so you're better to be involved so that you can influence that change at an early doors. So that's one thing as well. So I think it's definitely worth it. And if anyone has any questions or any doubts or just anything, I would definitely speak to Alice and Scarlett and Alex and any of the other team within the CSP to get more advice, because I do think that is definitely a worthwhile role.
Thanks, Melissa. I think there's some really important things there. I think, absolutely it's the team. You are part of a team, you're part of a network, but also, within your area, within your trust or health board or whatever, that you actually can create a team, and it makes the work a whole lot easier. And also, I mean, you talked about transferable skills. I still say, that it was my steward's work, steward's training, all of that helped me get to be chair of council. It was those same skills that I used very much sort of in getting into that role and then being able to develop myself within that role. So being a steward, being a rep can take you anywhere. So thank you to our 3 reps to talk about the roles and all be very different. So far, we've got one question, which I'll come to in a minute, but Scarlett, we need to stop recording. If we can do that.